Hello everybody, and welcome to episode 15 of Indie Beauty TV. My name is Rachel Whitaker, and I'm the founder of the Indie Beauty community, which is a cool little place where beautypreneurs like you can hang out and network and learn and share ideas with fellow entrepreneurs from around the globe. I am really excited today about this episode. One, because the topic that we're talking about is really close to my heart and that I'm very passionate about. And secondly, because I have a guest. You can see that I've got a guest, and I love it when I've got a guest. Although, as you know, I get a little bit nervous about the technology, but fingers crossed will be good today. I've got Melissa here today, Melissa Kimball, and she's the founder of Awake Organics. We're going to be talking about sustainability and zero waste and how as an industry we can meet those challenges. The reason Melissa is here is because she is hot off the back of launching her own zero waste packaging scheme, which is called the Zero Waste 500 Club, isn't it, Melissa?
You bet. Yeah, that's right.
Excellent. Well, all I wanted to say before we get really stuck into it is that I was at In Cosmetics Global last week. At the beginning of the month, beginning of the month. One of the topics which kept coming up continuously was sustainability and was zero waste. And it was referred to a little bit as a trend. I don't want to refer to it as a trend because this is one of the biggest challenges that as an industry and as a global population we're now facing. And I think every founder, this is why I get quite passionate about this subject, as founders, we have such a responsibility to do our bit. And if we all did our bit, it adds up to being, quite a big bit. And as independent brands and solo entrepreneurs, we don't have the big budgets. We don't have the huge teams that those bigger brands and bigger companies have. And it can feel really daunting to understand and work out and rise to the challenge of how we can manage these things within our business, which is why I've brought Melissa on, because she's done this in real life. So this is a Facebook Live, guys. I can see people are joining us live. Do say hello in the comments box. I love to see who's there. I can see Corin from Osco's already there. But anybody else who's joining us, do say hello. I will give you a shout out. And if you've got questions for Melissa as she's speaking, just pop them in the comments box. I'll see them and relay them onto Melissa. So I guess that's enough of me. To get us started, Melissa, it would be really cool if you could give us a little bit of an introduction to you and Awake Organics and why the sort of sustainability and zero waste is such an important thing to you and the values that your brand has.
Well, thanks for having me on today, Rachel. Well, I'm Melissa. I'm the founder of Awake Organics, and we make natural skincare and natural deodorant, essentially for people who are avoiding the more sort of controversial chemicals that are in our personal care products today. The people that love our products are very conscious consumers. They're thinkers. They aspire to the zero waste lifestyle. And I'm essentially looking for ways to serve them. So that is basically the crux of the business right there.
And how long have you been established as a business, Melissa?
Yeah, so we are in our third year. And I will say that in the first year, it was a very soft, let's call it a very soft launch in. I actually didn't know if anyone would buy anything. So, I was testing the waters basically. So we incorporated properly a year after, once we'd had a bit of success with our very first product, which was a natural deodorant. And it's been kind of like whoosh, ever since.
Oh, cool. So let's have a look then at this, the sustainability and zero waste. It's obviously important to you personally. It's obviously very, very important to the customers that you have. But I would really love to find out, and I think what the guys would love to find out is, how did you go about? How long did it take you to come up with this idea? How many different ideas did you have? How did you settle on this idea?
Well, Yeah, I mean, it was something that I worked on in the background of everything else. And so I think it probably took longer to actually materialize than maybe I had originally planned. All in all, it definitely took me between probably 8 and 10 months, and then a very quick month at the end of long hours and late nights to actually make a program that people could, follow. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it took a little while, but I think, yeah, it was worth it. It was definitely worth it.
So tell us what your program is, because I think this is really interesting. And sort of, was it your first idea, or have you worked on lots of different ideas to get you to the actual scheme that you've launched?
So what basically happened was, once we had of success, so in 2018 was when we started gaining some momentum, and that is when customers just started contacting me on a regular basis, asking if they could return their jars. Like they wanted an alternative. It was actually causing them discomfort to put the jars into a recycle bin, and they wanted me to tell them what to do. Like they wanted to send them back. They wanted, well, do you have like a download that I can, and I can repurpose? And so that was the inspiration behind it. And I really related to that anyway, because I was experiencing the same feelings every time I would finish whatever it was, and I would go and put it in a recycle bin. I think there's a growing consumer mistrust at the moment about the recycling industry in general. We've all seen kind of like the videos on Facebook or YouTube of children with no shoes and giant piles of what is supposed to be our recycled goods, but it's just, in massive piles where they live. And then, of course, there's the issue of mass manufacturing, too many emissions. I mean, it's all adding up, and people are feeling a lot of anxiety. They're feeling quite angry. They're actually, a lot of them have reached out to me and have felt, what I interpret to be as almost like grief, like a feeling of deep sadness. And so I really felt like I had this the insight, I guess, in a way, like I could feel it myself. My customers were asking for a solution, and I just thought, well, why don't I just give them an alternative? So that is kind of like what inspired the program. The program is essentially like a beauty refill service. So it works, it's a packaging return scheme. It works like I send them an order, and it comes with a prepaid postage label. They then take out the new bits, they pop in the old jars, and then they use all the original packaging that I've sent over, and they pop on the label, and they just send it back. And it comes back to me through Royal Mail, which is, arriving daily anyway. And then I can refurbish the jars, and they basically go back into the cycle, into the system. So it's a circular packaging model. Now, how that all came together was quite a lot. Like it sounds simple, and it is actually simple. But finding what my customers were really valuing in order to create that simple program was what took the bit of time and the research. So it just meant talking to them, answering the emails in like a real way, like a real person, how would you like to see this? And can you give me some ideas? I went into quite a few Facebook groups that were more like ethically minded, consumer groups, and also just in business groups as well. And I would post my ideas and kind of where I was at, and I would get loads of feedback. And that was super helpful because, what it helped me realize was that there's the element of we'll call it like the feel-good factor of, oh, okay, I'm sending this back, and so it's not going to be chucked in the bin, and it's not going to be recycled, and so I'm doing my part for the environment. But also, I'm really, really busy, and like, why am I going to spend my 5 minutes or 10 minutes my only 10 minutes of the day that I'm spending on myself? Why am I going to do that? And and put this thing in the box and blah blah blah. So I learned that I needed to make it rewarding on another level as well. It's like the double incentive, right? And it works great, because the customer earns reward points, which they can then spend on their next purchase. So whenever they send me back the jars, I can then reuse the jars, and they get points for the next purchase. Like, in order for this program to be sustainable as a business, it needs to be mutually beneficial between me and our business, and then the customer. So it was kind of like a balancing act in figuring out how to put those pieces together.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. It's quite tricky, isn't it? But the fact that you've gone out and canvassed for opinion is an amazing way of kind of building something that people are going to like when you put it out there. So they return, you recycle, it's prepaid. They also get these wonderful points which build up. And does that give them a discount then when they purchase further products from you?
Yeah, exactly. So, that might ring and ring and ring. Hold on.
We never get away without a phone call or something going off.
Yes, speaking. I'm really well, thank you. I'm actually just in the middle of something. Could I pick this up with you later? Great. How about after 5? Yeah, that's great. Okay, thank you. Bye. Sorry, Rachel.
I've had many things in Facebook Lives before. I've never had a live phone call, so this is a first for me. So well done. That's absolutely brilliant. At least it's not the technology going wrong. So for me, honestly, I'm like, wow, this is cool. Everything's going really well for me at the moment. So that's brilliant. So they make up some points, and then they get to take that offer and therefore receive a discount when they come back. So it's zero waste, but also it is mutually beneficial. It does encourage repeat customers and loyalty for you.
It is, and it does, and that is actually essential, because there is financial cost involved in this program. And so if I was going to be if I wasn't going to somehow recover that, it would be really difficult, because I would be continually it would just be continually chipping away at the cash flow that we need as a growing business to keep innovating and creating products and, expanding and trying to make them available in more places. So, so it's not like a philanthropical, I can't say it, you know what I mean? Effort. It is, however, it must be mutually beneficial. But I mean, I think that is a great approach to it. And I know that my customers very much appreciate that. So it's win-win.
And that's an interesting point that you've raised, because I think one of the hurdles that many of the indie brands that I certainly work with and that one of the hurdles is the expense of it. So when you look at the expense of it, you've obviously got the return mail cost, which you're absorbing.
Right.
You've obviously got the reprocessing and I was going to say rehabilitation. I'm not good at words of the jars to use them again. And I assume you're using some kind of software to manage the kind of points process.
Yes, we are. So, I mean, in terms of the technology that we're using for the program as a whole, there isn't a lot, because there's essentially like an Excel spreadsheet which tracks what's coming in and from who. So that's personal. You wouldn't necessarily need to do that, but I think it's good. How many jars you've recovered over a year. You can calculate how much of an offset in terms of CO2 that that produces. And then but it's very simple, so everybody knows how to use Excel. There's probably other more complicated things you could do for that, but I mean, yeah. And then I wrote down actually a list of a few different rewards software programs. So it depends very much on your platform. So like whatever your website e-commerce platform is, so like WooCommerce or Shopify, or I don't know what the other ones are actually. So they run on different platforms. So there's not like a one size fits all for everybody. And also it depends on your budget, because if you want something that's really sophisticated and has like maybe tiered programming, tiered reward system, or more ways to reward your customers, you will typically have to spend more money. So, you know, it depends on how much money you'd like to invest in your program. But here are a few ones, okay? There's WooCommerce, Points and Rewards, Beans, Sumo, Gratisfaction, Swell, and Smile. And those were the ones that came up most when I was researching for our program.
So these are software packages or apps that bolt onto the back of your web shop, which will help you to manage this kind of loyalty, kind of points-based system.
Exactly, like a plugin, essentially.
Yeah, great. Yeah. I will for those of you who are watching now, and for those of you who are catching up on replay, I will list all of those out in the comments below so that you can go and have a look at those, and I'll put some links in. But I think what you just said actually, Melissa, is so sort of, it makes me feel like this is possible, that more brands can do this. I was thinking, gosh, there must be a big system behind the scenes, and it must be quite difficult to set up. But what you've just said is you can make it, certainly when you launch, as simple as you want it to be to get things going. And you can potentially grow that and adapt that and change that as you're going forward. But actually, the obstacles that many of us think are there to put this kind of scheme in place aren't actually there if you go in on a reasonably basic level.
Exactly. So I think the work is at the beginning, when you're trying to determine what your customer values and tying that into the program itself. Yeah. So because you have to be quite intentional about that. Otherwise, it's not really going to work, because you won't have anybody buying into the idea. So it does need to be, that's the part that takes the time. And that's what took, like I said in the beginning, I had, 8 or 10 months or something of all this other stuff, and then a month at the end to like actually build it out. What else was there? I mean, we have these little, there's the Royal Mail part as well. So that's very simple. So it's essentially like a free post account that you need. It's amazing, like in the UK, I don't know if they do this in Canada or not. It's the mail system over there is, everything takes a lot longer and is a lot more expensive. Over here, you have this incredible opportunity because, it's not that expensive to send something. It arrives right away. And you have all these neat little products like free posts. So you basically just sign up for an account. There's a small annual fee of like £100 plus VAT, I think. And then on top of that, you're going to pay for every returned package. So what you do is you create your free post label. It's a little bit of time going back and forth with Royal Mail to do that. It's not hard at all, and it takes a week. So you create your little free post label, and it's there, and it's your template, and all you do is you print it out every time you want to send one out. You don't get charged every time you print the label. You get charged every time a package is delivered to you. So you're charged per service. And you can be very selective about the service that you want to use. And, there's everything from, second class, no signature. There's so many different levels. So you have flexibility there as well that can work with your pricing.
Yeah.
when you're budgeting that into your costs. And then you just basically need to create something that explains how to use the program that's easy, so that when a customer opens their package, they just can see what to do, and it's simple. And then these, they come back in the package, so like perfect to reuse again. I mean, nobody's done anything to them. There's no fingerprints. I mean, so you just end up reusing that. So there's a lot that actually that I didn't really think of, but actually a lot of stuff is being repurposed and reused, and it's quite cool. It's quite cool.
Oh, excellent. We've got quite a lot of people who've joined in and some comments, so I'm not going to ignore them any longer. So Ellie's here, and she's saying that that it's really great that you're out there doing that. Some of the brands say one thing, but behind closed doors they're doing another, and it's great to see a brand out there who's actually standing up and actually making this happen.
That's cool.
And I think she's also laughing at my package rehabilitation. I think it's going to catch on, that phrase. Nicola joined us. Now, actually, yeah, I'm just going to take this on. So we've got a question here from Herbal Earth, but I'm going to come back to that in a second. So this program that you've set up is working online. This is with your B2C customers.
Yes.
So I just want to talk about how you are how they're receiving it and how the education part is going, because I know one of the things around these sorts of schemes is that you have to talk about them, you have to get them out there, and why wouldn't you? I mean, this is something to be like super proud of, and it's such an important thing. So it has a marketing element to it as well, and I just wanted to see how you are sort of putting it out there, how your customers are reacting to it.
So I launched it. How did I launch it? I think I just sent a newsletter out to everybody. I sent one or two at least to let them know that it was live. And then again, this is how it works. And then, of course, whenever the order comes in, I send out the instructions with their order. So they can't really avoid it. I was like sticking it in their face. But you're right, because the hardest part is getting people to know about it in general, like other people. And I think that's where the idea of, like, the concept of sharing this idea is so, so important. And it's why I wanted to come on and talk about it, because this idea works better when other people know about it. Like, other businesses can follow this circular packaging model, and then their customers will learn, hey, I didn't even think that was possible. Wow, even a little business like you is doing this. Well, what about the bigger ones? It makes people think and imagine a different sort of possibility of a future, of like how we're all consuming and reusing. And I think without people talking about it, sharing the idea, that's just it's not going to really take off the way that it could. So yeah, that's yeah. I don't know if I've answered the question.
Well, no, I totally agree. I think one of the things that you were also saying, and that's why I'm delighted that you're here sharing it, because I think what you've managed to do is show people that it is achievable. It's even for startup brands and independent brands who don't have huge teams and huge budgets. It's actually perfectly achievable. Yes. You can make it mutually beneficial. And I guess there's also an element potentially of attracting new customers, because you're doing something so bold and so different and so important. And there, there's obviously a marketing element there of bringing new customers in, if you're sort of using, your social and your marketing channels to get this scheme out there. Yeah,
I mean, that was your original question, wasn't it? How are you getting it out there? And yeah, so social channels for sure. Talks like this. Yes, I mean, you have to market the idea, or else it won't take off. So, I mean, and I don't feel guilty about that in any way, because, like I said before, in order for it to work, it needs to be mutually beneficial. And in order for it to work, other people need to know about it. So it's just very simple.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, I have to ask the question, because I do know part of the answer already, but you are seeing some interest from the press on this, and you're being picked up by the press.
Yes. Yeah. So that was quite a surprise. Yesterday, I've discovered that I was in a Forbes piece, and which has been out since the 16th of April. Yeah, I was. That was pretty cool. I've had a few different people contact me actually about it, so there's probably more on the way, and I think that is very neat. I think sometimes, like as a small business, as an indie entrepreneur, there's always, and especially I know for me, I struggle with this all the time. It's probably my number one challenge, and that is like coming up with some ideas, but then almost talking myself out of it. Like the stories that we tell ourselves, well, it'll be too expensive to do that, or I don't really have time, or I don't know where to start, or other people will just copy me. Like these are the things that roll around, but actually just ignoring all of that for a second and just stepping outside of that and just recognizing that you kind of have to just push past those little, I don't know what you call them, fear bubbles, fear of like a total flop. like I've just wasted a year on this program and it's just gonna like crash and burn because nobody cared. That's it, right there, probably.
Yeah.
But actually, people want to care about this stuff.
Yeah.
And they want to see somebody stand up who's like them, just a person, not a big conglomerate, not in charge of, at the head of government, just somebody who's like a mom and a wife and, has to pick up her kid from soccer soon, and saying, actually, I think I can do something to help this situation, and just sharing that idea, I think, is really powerful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and it was wonderful to see a sort of a magazine like Forbes pick it up, because it's and if there is other stuff, and that's the sort of wonderful publicity that you're not paying for. It's wonderful marketing that you're not paying for, and it's going out to a lot of people. So it's I think well done, and it just goes to show that this is something which is on the minds of everybody at the moment. It is such an important top challenge for us, and this was the thing that came out in cosmetics a lot. It wasn't people talking about it. It was people saying, this is a challenge and we have to take action. The time for talking about it and saying, oh, yes, we need to do something about that. And wouldn't it be good if we could do something about that? That time's gone. Yeah. And there was some really sort of bold sort of clarion calls to wake, people, to shake brands up really and say, please, if we all do what we can as an industry, then we're in a much more powerful position. So it's great to see magazines and industry press and journos and things like that picking up on that. So I think that's really positive.
Exactly. Yeah. And also, just imagine for a second, if all the small businesses that were using, let's just say, glass jars, decided to give this a go for 1 year. Our packaging, I mean, I've set like a fairly modest goal because I didn't know exactly how many people would really get on board. So I just did a percentage of our annual sales in terms of units sold. And so I came up with the number 500, and that's why it's called the Zero Waste 500 Club. So if 500 jars come back to our business, that I've calculated based on the energy expenditure to make one jar based on the weight of the glass, that will actually reduce the CO2 emissions that would be produced by almost 4.5 tons.
Wow.
And I'm just, it's quite a lot. Like, another way to think about that is that's the equivalent of 4 acres of forest absorbing CO2 for 12 months.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's huge, isn't it? And that's that's 500 jars.
That's only 500 jars.
Yeah, that's 500 jars. Wow.
When you start dissecting it and actually looking at like the real value of it, it becomes, not only is it like a total no-brainer, but it really gets you excited about the idea of people finding the courage to take this on, or even just to try it. And because every brand will be different, and we'll have like little challenges, and we'll have to, maybe this won't work a little bit that way, and finding the route, like the path to success for the program. But I think we have to start, like you said, we've got to start now, because if we just keep saying, well, not me, I'm too small, what am I going to do? Nobody's going to do anything. So, I mean, we really have to start now, so that in a year's time, I have collected the data. I know what has worked, what didn't work at all, and I can pivot and make changes and make it better for the year after that. So, and I think, and then also more and more people will know about it. Customers will they love to tell the story of this. It's they're talking about it. More people will start to, will become a normal idea instead of kind of weird, and like, how would that work?
Yeah.
And then once it's normal, the bigger companies will have no choice but to start working this into their framework.
Yeah.
I think as indie beauty entrepreneurs, because we are more nimble and we are smaller, and we don't have to go through this huge chain of command to make a decision about something, that is a total advantage, and we should be using that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Right? And I'm just thinking of everybody who is sort of in the Indie Beauty Delivers community, for example. All of you who have launched or are launching imminently. If you had something like this and all of you are doing 500, that's phenomenal.
See, then you can imagine the multiplier effect.
That's phenomenal. And I think actually what you've also done there is really key, Melissa, because you've made it real. It's all right talking about, we recycle stuff and you send it back and we recycle it and we send it out. But where the magical bit happens, where the bit where we all sit back and say, I feel really motivated and inspired to put my own scheme out there, or as a consumer, I feel really motivated and inspired to take part in this scheme, is when we hear that just 500 jars makes such a massive difference. Yeah. And I know that's a wonderful thing to be able to talk about, for sure. Absolutely, for sure. So this is going out B2C. I know that you also have worked with some retailers. How are retailers dealing with this idea? Do they want to get involved? What's the feedback from them?
So I haven't really had any yet, because the feedback, you know how it goes with feedback and retailers. There's a little time delay, and we just launched. So I don't know is the answer. I just don't know exactly.
Are they taking part, the retailers? Are they accepting return? Is it sort of rolling out to them, or is it staying really with the B2C?
So I would love to see that take place at some point, but I feel like before I can really approach them with this concept, I need to make it work for us first, so that I can prove that it is something that will bring a customer back and isn't going to take a bunch of time from their staff. So I need to still, it's why it's a pilot project for 12 months, because I'm still learning all that stuff. That's really key. But what I have done is within the UK, anyone who buys a product that we make from a shop, they can still go to our website and they can still download the same printed label as anyone else, and they can send it back to me. The only thing is that they won't obviously have the box and everything already from, an order that I've sent out. So they have to come up with their own little packaging bit. But I mean, if it's there, the option is there, and I do hope that this will be something that I can introduce once I have more data, really more hard evidence, right? Like I need hard evidence.
Yeah. You do with it. You do with a retailer. You need to be able to, because even retailers with hearts, there are some out there. Even retailers with hearts, they very much. It's got to be again that mutual relationship. So it's got to bring customers back into their store. It's got to bring new customers to their store because it's giving them that kind of edge. So you have to get that sort of data. But it'll be really, really interesting to watch this unroll, I think, and really interesting to see how the retailers get involved as well. That could be very interesting indeed.
I'll keep you posted.
So I'm just checking comments. So we've got Shauna Gallagher's come in, and she's saying that she has customers return her bottles to her as well. But it can be really labor intensive to clean them. Do your customers clean them, or do you ask them to clean them before they send them back?
Well, I do. It does say, like, I do need them to rinse them out and make sure they're dry, because as good as Royal Mail is, if it takes its time getting to me and arrives full of gunk and mold or something like that, I'm not going to really be able to reuse it very, so I do ask that they clean it out. However, that's not then ready to go to the next customer anyway. So actually, one of the questions my husband asked me when I was talking about this in the first place was like, well, how on earth are you ever going to find time to wash 500 extra jars? It was just so obvious to me, because I was like, well, I'm sanitizing and sterilizing every single jar anyway. What's the difference? And add a few it's really, there's no difference to me whatsoever, because every jar that is filled with anything is completely and utterly painstakingly, scrubbed and sanitized. So it,
And I suppose you're not dealing with all 500 at the same time as well.
Exactly.
When it goes up to 1,000 or 500 a day or 500 a week, that's going to be a bit more of an issue. But
I mean, so the thing is, but see, we're getting through those jars anyhow. So it's the rate of output that is increasing. Not really it's not the rate of input that matters. It's the rate of output. Yeah. So, sense. We're doing like a heap all the time. And I'm actually fantasizing about commercial dishwashers. Like, I have a deep fantasy for one of those. I'll tell you. That's on my list. That's on my list for equipment.
Investments for 2020.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, so before we wrap it up, I just wanted to ask, really, if you could offer just what advice would you offer everybody who's going to watch this video about how to start and why they should start to do something like this?
Well, okay, so this is important because, we're at the point now where CO2 is a big issue. It's a big issue where we live. I mean, look at London, what's it called? The ULEZ? I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but the ultra low emission zone, where you cannot drive in central London because the CO2 levels are too high. You have to pay a tariff. You have to pay a special fee. So the people living and working and, walking around there are breathing in this air that is a problem today. Never mind parts of the world where it's worse all the time. So this is the future, right? Like it's not going to fix itself. It's only getting worse. And we need to be more conscious about the amount of stuff that is being manufactured. I think I hope this program is going to demonstrate that we can have, that we can chip away at that level of CO2 emissions simply by reusing some packaging. It's just quite simple. And I think it's going to work if enough businesses get on board and enough people start to talk about it, and they want to support that, and I think they do. I think in terms of advice on getting going, I think programs like this do take time and money. There's a cost associated. There's a cost. Time is money, and also there is a cost. So I think if you are starting out, and it's really important to get your pricing right, because you need to have margins that are healthy enough to support your projects, whatever they may be. For me, there have been a few, but this is the latest, and there probably will be more. So you need to make sure that your margins are healthy enough so that the money doesn't limit your ideas and control what you can and can't do, because you can't afford it. I think that can stunt your creativity, actually. I think that the program needs to be really rewarding for you and your customers. So you have to do the research to determine, how you can how it can be sustainable for your business, and also how getting to know your customers really well, so that you can understand what they value and will actually want to be involved in and put their time into as well. I think try to make it as easy as possible too, just because we're all busy and nobody wants to learn any more stuff, right? And just don't be afraid to try something that's a bit different. I'm not the first. This is not my original idea, right? I didn't invent this. I'm just standing up going, yeah, I think I can probably, do something with that. And I think I can probably tell some people about it. And that's actually quite scary, because then you risk looking kind of crazy sometimes, which I know for me is always what I'm worried about at the end of the day, because sometimes I can be. And but it's just kind of pushing past that self-talk where you talk yourself out of doing it because of whatever reason. Oh, I won't make a difference. It's too expensive. I don't have time. All those things, because you don't want to really put yourself out there. And so I think that's the biggest advice, I think, is just to get the idea, have the big idea, whatever it is, and share it, because we need more good ideas.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I don't think any of the ladies who've joined us today think you're crazy, by the way. I've had some lovely messages coming in here towards the end from Nancy at Herbala. Thank you, Melissa, for your inspiration. Ellie is saying, thank you, ladies. That was great. So I hope I think I agree with you. I hope what we've managed to show today, Melissa, or you've managed to show by coming on and being my guest, is that this is achievable and we can all do something. It's not as big, and it's not as scary, and it's not as expensive as you might think. It's all about designing a service that matches your customers' expectations and needs, and making it worthwhile to them, but also making it worthwhile to you. It is mutually beneficial. There are options to grow your customer base, get more return customers, get publicity. There's all sorts of things that come off the back of it. The most important part of which is that just 500 jars
I
make such a huge difference to us.
Totally hit the nail on the head there, Rachel, because you're right. Your first motivation for this type of a program shouldn't be the money and the customers, because customers that like this kind of thing are so switched on and smart. They will see through that in one split second. You need to really actually feel it yourself and understand and relate and want to make a change. I think.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. Well, thank you very much for joining me. Now, I know I haven't ignored some of the questions that came in right at the beginning, but they were largely around recommendations for sustainable packaging, which isn't what we were talking about today. But I am working on having some guests in the not too distant future who may be able to help us out with that real packaging element, because I know so many of you talk to me about this all the time and how challenging it is. So I am doing some work behind the scenes on that, and I should be able to bring you something that will help you in that area in the not too distant future. So thank you very much for joining us, Melissa.
It's a pleasure.
You are always an inspiration. You always say things. I've had the pleasure of working with you a number of times, and you always put things so succinctly, so openly, and so honestly. And I really do appreciate that. It has been absolutely wonderful. So guys, this was episode 15 of Indie Beauty TV this year. There are 14 before this. If you've missed any of them, they are all this good. So just go back down through the Facebook feed and you'll find them. Very soon I will be able to offer you them all on YouTube. It's all getting very exciting here. So very soon you will be able to find them all on YouTube as well, so you can catch up. And you should be able to, in the next few weeks, find them all as a podcast as well. So it's all getting pretty exciting. As I said at the beginning, if you're new to the Indie Beauty Delivers community, you can find me in my Facebook page here where you are now, in my Facebook group Indie Beauty Rocks, over on Instagram Indie Beauty Delivers, and go sign up for my weekly, very private email blog. It's really, really worth it. Thank you so much for joining us. I will put links to Melissa's website in the notes below here when I've finished. Plus, I will put links to all of those wonderful packages that Melissa mentioned that can help you run these loyalty programs. And I'm sure, Melissa, that you're around. She's a member of the Facebook group, and obviously you can contact her if you've got any questions. But thank you so much for joining us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been wonderful. It's been absolutely wonderful. And thank you to everybody who's watched live. Thank you to everybody who is watching on catch up. Mwah. Loads of indie hugs and love. See you soon. Bye. Bye.